Bernard Moule, 50 years on the stage as we are now in Harlow. So can you take us back to what was the first production you were involved with?
The first production I was ever involved with was a play called Lysistrata by Aristophanes, a Greek comedy, which was with a company who are now defunct, but called the Prentice Players. And I had a very small walk-on role as basically a spear carrier, not much more, with 3 or 4 lines, and that was it. But I enjoyed it. I really got a taste for it very quickly.
And how did you get involved? Did you see an advert? Or?
No, I'd done a lot of theatre at my junior school in Harlow, Potter Street Junior School. And at the age of 11, having passed 11 plus, I went to a grammar school, at Cheshunt Grammar School, which I didn't enjoy. Discovered that I wasn't as academic as maybe people thought I was. And although they had a thriving theatre set up at Cheshunt Grammar School, I didn't get involved with that, so I had a break from theatre completely. But when I left grammar school and started work in Harlow, I used to go down to the pub regularly with my mates, as you do when you're a teenager. And one of my friends said that he was involved with this particular play, and that sparked my interest. And I thought, oh yes, perhaps I could give it another go. So I did, and went along to their first rehearsal, and they took me on board, and that's how it all started, really.
So from spear chucker,
yeah.
did you? When was the first, I guess, substantial role?
Well, I was very fortunate because after the production of Lysistrata, there was an after-play party, as there usually is with these theatrical things, and a chap at the party called me over and said to me, are you thinking of doing any more theatre? He said, because I think you've got a bit of a knack for it. And I said, well, yes, I'd like to. So he then said, well, come and audition for the next production. Now, this was a chap called John Tipper, who was the leading, I didn't know at the time, but he was the leading man in Harlow at the time. He'd played all the big roles, Hamlet, you name it, he'd done it, and he was a fantastic actor. So I went along and got involved in another play in which he was appearing. And he gradually mentored me over a number of years, and I learned a huge amount from John. And we went on to do quite a lot of work together over many years in the theatre. But at this time, of course, you have to remember we were working out of schools. It was okay, but yes, I suppose it was frustrating. People had been pushing for a theatre in Harlow, a proper professional theatre in Harlow for many years, and a home for the amateurs. And a lot of people put in a lot of work over many, many years to get the playhouse established.
Was it difficult? Were there objections?
Oh yes, all sorts of objections.
Oh.
Yeah, primarily financial. A lot of people didn't want the council to be spending money on this venture. But
was it seen as maybe some sort of middle class vanity?
Very much so, I think. Yes,
it's
I think
still
so.
sometimes seen as a middle
It
class
is,
vanity.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
It is, unfortunately. But I just believe the arts in general are so important to people, and to it's a mark of a civilized society, in my view. I know that there's lots of other important things that money needs to be spent on. Obvious things like the national health, housing, and so on and so forth. But without the arts, life can be pretty soulless, I think, in lots of ways. So when the Playhouse was eventually built and opened in 1972, the amateurs were very, very keen to get in there. It actually was a little bigger than the theatre we wanted, and it sort of fell between 2 stools. I think the seating in the main house was about 400, which was probably a little on the large side for amateur companies, but not quite big enough to attract the top professional names. So that was a bit of a funny sort of situation. But a chap called Bob Jones, who ironically was my headmaster at Potter Street Junior School up until the age I was 11, was, unbeknown to me when I joined them, was running the Prentice Players. And Bob decided, so we became reacquainted. He was a lovely man. He's been dead for some while now, but he was a lovely chap and a very important man in the arts in Harlow at the time. But Bob directed a production of Tom Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. And he cast me in the part of Guildenstern, which was a major, major role. I mean, it's basically a two-hander. I was working with another chap called Tony Davey playing Rosencrantz, who was a good actor. But what is interesting, it was the first amateur production in the Harlow Playhouse in 1972. By the way, I don't like the word amateur, but I can't think of any other word to use. I prefer sort of local theatre or part-time theatre.
Is it quite a pejorative term, isn't it?
I think so.
Is it a bit
yes.
like, I'm an amateur athlete when I do the park run on a Saturday morning, but then again, maybe so is Mo Farah.
Exactly.
So there's a bit of a difference in quality. Yeah.
Exactly, Michael, yeah. I mean, my view is that the top amateur actors are every bit as good as a lot of professional actors, and I've worked with professional actors, so I know that to be true. But anyway, that's a little beef.
But there are people who could have gone on and been, who are professional in their performance, and
certainly
could have gone on to be professional.
Certainly,
but they now have another job.
I
believe
believe
when they step
so.
back on the stage, they're a professional.
I believe so. Anyway, not only was it the first amateur or non-professional production in the Playhouse, it was also the first amateur production of the play itself, Stoppard's play. And Tony Davey and I played it, and it was a really massive role, but we played to pretty much full houses, and it was very well received. So that was most enjoyable. And I sort of kicked on from there, really, doing other stuff, starting to direct plays as well as act, directing plays in the studio theatre at the Playhouse, and indeed on the main stage at the Playhouse. I directed another Stoppard play, which is not so well known, called Dirty Linen. And the star of that was an actress called Joanna Bacon. And Jo, as she's known, went on to become a professional actress and has starred in films and has appeared at the National Theatre and has been very, very successful regularly on television. But she hasn't forgotten her roots. She comes back and gets involved with us and supports us, which is really great.
Play, and what performance over the last 50 years has given you the most satisfaction?
That's quite a difficult question. I don't think there's a single play. There are two or three, I suppose. One would be Arthur Miller's play Of All My Sons, in which I played the lead, Joe Keller. We played that in the studio theatre at the Harlow Playhouse. And we actually won. That was directed by another wonderful actress and friend of mine called Margaret Lambert, who was also very influential in my early career. And we won an award from NODA for that production. Very powerful play. I love Arthur Miller. I love all his work. And it was a very powerful role to play, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So that was very satisfying and pleasing. Another one, strangely enough, was the part of Pontius Pilate in Dennis Potter's play Son of Man, in which John Tipper played Jesus Christ. And Potter portrayed Christ as a sort of rabble-rouser and a socialist, and it was a very strong play. And that was on the main stage at the Playhouse, directed again by Margaret Lambert. But more recently, before I decided to pack up after 50 years, I played the lead in a play for the Heath Players, the Hatfield Heath Players, called The Last Romance, which was an American play. And again, we actually took that to a festival at Hartford. They have a competitive festival at Hartford every year. And there are normally 6 plays, and there's an adjudication and so on and so forth. And we actually won the audience award for that particular play. So again, that gave me a lot of satisfaction too.
So have you now stepped off the stage, is that it?
Pretty much.
There's going to be a Frank Sinatra comment in a minute.
Oh, well, I've often said that, and people say I've had more comebacks than Frank Sinatra. But I turned 70 last year, and we won the award at Hartford, and I suddenly realised I'd been acting for 50 years. I turned 70, we won the award. I thought, maybe now's a good time to stop inflicting myself on audiences and, you know.
Sure, you're
so,
going into your peak.
I wish. So I said, no, that's it for acting. I can still learn the lines and do stuff, but I've had a really good innings and I've enjoyed it so much.
And it's thriving down here. We're here. Anybody who doesn't know, we're here down in Old Harlow, Victoria Hall.
Yeah.
You know, there's rehearsals going on for a half-term production called Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah.
I appreciate you mentioning that. But it's a thriving theatre down here.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a lovely little theatre, and this theatre is really more of what we had in mind when the Playhouse was built. This size of theatre, which is ideal for amateurs or non-professionals, but it's very flexible too. You can do a huge amount of different stuff in here.
And Harlow Theatre Company cover a great range and
They
can
do.
well
They do.
on what they do. That's always impressed me.
Absolutely. When we founded Harlow Theatre Company back in 1978, what was happening was there were 2 or 3 amateur groups at the time, all of whom were struggling a bit. So we decided that to try and amalgamate the groups into one stronger entity. Bless you. One stronger entity. And an advert was placed in the local paper, probably the Harlow Citizen at the time, and we asked anybody who was interested in forming a new company to come along to the Playhouse for a meeting, and we were astonished. The meeting was in the committee room at the Playhouse. We couldn't accommodate everybody. We had about 80 or 90 people turn up, which was just incredible. So, yeah, we formed the new company. Didn't have a name at the time, that came a bit later. But I was elected chairman, and we had a committee. So we set about sorting out a name, sorting out logos, sorting out a constitution, everything, and a programme, of course. And I had the pleasure of directing the first play for Harlow Theatre Company back in '78. And it just went on from there. At one time, we were doing about 12 productions a year in the Playhouse. It was that active and successful, and still is. Not doing as many productions, but the essence of the company was always to try and reach the highest standard possible, and that remains true today.
But still, to this day, in 2018, still encouraging people, if you want to go, please come. I imagine there's that.
Absolutely.
Across, yeah.
I've always made a point, Michael, when I've directed a play, if at all possible, to include a relatively inexperienced actor to help them, you know, come through as I did. A good director can make such a difference to somebody coming into theatre or into acting for the first time. And one of the reasons I've sort of packed up acting really is that we need more younger people coming through, because without the youngsters, it ain't going to happen. So I've always believed that we need young people coming through, we need their energy, and we need them to grow and get to love what is a wonderful hobby.
Well, on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much.